You could take the time once spent folding and sorting and waiting to finally pursue a whole new version of you. Like Tea Time You. Or this Tea Time You. Or even this Tea Time You.
So did you hear about Dave?
Or even Tea Time, Tea Time, Tea Time You.
So update on Dave.
It's up to you. We'll take the laundry. Rinse. It's time to be great.
Before we start the show, I want to tell you about a new way to listen to Unexplainable. By becoming a Vox member, you'll get access to a new feed where you can listen ad-free, just a steady stream of science mysteries with no breaks. You'll also be able to read every article on Vox.com. You get access to a member-exclusive newsletter, and you'll get a whole bunch of other perks. More importantly, though, you'll be supporting Unexplainable. Making this show, diving into these unanswered questions, it takes a lot of time and effort and drafts, so many drafts. And every new Vox member gives us a stable base of support that allows us to make even more ambitious episodes and long-term series. We truly can't make this show without you. And right now, Vox is offering 30% off an annual membership. All you have to do is go to vox.com/members to join. Thanks. It's Unexplainable. I'm Noam Hassenfeld. And by this point, you've probably heard about Trump's Tylenol thoughts.
Don't take Tylenol. Don't take it. If you just can't, it's fight like hell not to take it.
Trump and other officials like RFK Jr., they seem convinced that Tylenol causes autism, that it's responsible for the increase in autism diagnoses we've seen over the past couple decades. But when you actually look at the science, it's a lot more complicated. And when I was reading and listening to all kinds of things on this supposed connection here, I listened to this great episode of Science Versus. And it was so good that I just wanted to share it with you. I love the way they approach the question with an open mind. And they do a great job of getting into the nitty-gritty of the data, not just whether Tylenol causes autism, but what specific data has led so many people to actually think it does, and why that data isn't necessarily what it seems. Okay, here's Science Versus and Meryl Horn.
This is Meryl, and today we're diving into this question of whether there's a link between acetaminophen and autism. With me is senior producer Rose Rimler. Hey, Rose.
Hi, Meryl.
So yeah, you may remember that we worked on this whole autism episode a few months ago, right?
Yeah.
And we covered what causes autism, why it looks like it's gotten more common in the past few decades.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was working on that, I talked to a scientist who looked at Tylenol, or acetaminophen. So it was kind of perfect, because when I saw all of this was hitting the news, I was like, oh, now I can call that guy back up.
You had this in your back pocket, just waiting to go.
Yeah, it was
That's
all
great.
set to go. So yeah, this is Brian Lee, professor of epidemiology at Drexel University. Hello.
Hey, Meryl.
How are you?
It's been a very hectic last few days.
I bet.
Yeah, he's getting kind of swarmed, and I wanted him to help me understand where this idea came from in the first place. This idea that acetaminophen could affect a fetus. If we were going to build the case against acetaminophen according to science, where would the story start? And apparently these concerns have been floating around for a while.
Over a decade ago, the first sort of research came out about acetaminophen during pregnancy and neurodevelopmental disorders. And that idea isn't crazy, because it's been previously linked with other sort of disorders, for example, specific birth defects, possible sex hormone issues. Yes.
Huh. So this was surprising to me, sex hormone issues?
So Tylenol or acetaminophen, we already know it can affect a fetus.
Well, there had been research on it, for sure.
Okay.
Suggesting that there might be some risks here, it was surprising to me, because I've been pregnant, and doctors will always tell you that Tylenol and other stuff with acetaminophen in it is the safe one to take. You're not supposed to take ibuprofen, because that's thought to mess up blood flow to the fetus and has been linked to congenital birth defects. Acetaminophen is thought to be the safer of the two.
I didn't know that. So if you're pregnant,
Relatively safe.
but even though they have these suspicions from these other conditions?
Well, there had been these kind of like trickling out of like concerns, like Brian said, that it might be messing with sex hormones, kind of acting as an endocrine disruptor.
That's so random.
Yeah, no, at first I was like, what? But apparently back 15 years ago, some researchers pointed out that some painkillers sort of look like a type of endocrine disruptor that I'm sure you've heard of, phthalates.
Sure. They're an element in plastics that are thought to be an endocrine disruptor.
Exactly, yeah. And so they tried testing whether painkillers, including acetaminophen, acted like phthalates when they put them on cells in a dish. And they found that, yeah, they kind of did.
Oh, interesting.
And we think phthalates might mess up hormones like testosterone in the body. And so researchers started looking into this, and some of them did find that people who took acetaminophen during pregnancy were more likely to have a son with undescended testicles when they were born.
Huh, okay.
Yeah, so some researchers were finding these things, not in every study, but there were these hints that something might be going on here. And that was the backdrop for this new wave of studies looking at the brain, because we know that hormones can affect brain development. So if something's messing with the hormones, maybe it could also change how the brain is developing in the fetus.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then studies start coming, looking at whether pregnant people who took acetaminophen were more likely to have a kid with autism. So like, some of them would get thousands of pregnant moms and ask them some questions.
They collected data.
Symptoms. Another study found that likely to be autistic with this exposure to acetaminophen in the womb, but not girls.
Huh. Okay. Kind of confusing.
Yeah, like none of these studies was like a slam dunk on its own, but at the same time, dozens of other studies were also coming out looking at other stuff, especially ADHD, and finding that rates of ADHD were up in these kids exposed to acetaminophen in the womb.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, in some cases it looked like the link was strongest for mothers who took acetaminophen pretty often, like in all 3 trimesters.
So there's like a dose response element as well.
That's what it looked like. And in 2021, this all comes to a head. A paper comes out from a bunch of researchers who'd been studying this, called a consensus statement. They issued a, quote, call for precautionary action, unquote, and basically suggested that people should pump the brakes on these pills, minimize the amount of acetaminophen that they take during pregnancy. Here's Brian.
And then to top it off, they published in a Nature journal, which is one of the most highly regarded scientific journals out there.
And so this statement really made scientists pay attention.
Up until that point, most people just kind of treated it like, oh, like a new study pops up every day, you aren't really sure what to believe or not. But once the consensus statement came out, it gave it like a stamp of authority.
Yeah, I would feel that way about a consensus statement in Nature.
Yeah.
Or a Nature offshoot. Yeah.
And some parents even started suing the companies that make meds with acetaminophen in them, saying that they should have warning labels on them about these risks. But as all of this was happening, a lot of scientists were like, wait a second.
When you use a phrase like consensus statement, it implies a sort of like 9 out of 10 dentists recommend. So it implies a sort of authoritative weight to the evidence.
And implying that this was the consensus seemed to piss a lot of scientists off. Some of them wrote responses to that consensus statement saying that it was way too soon to come out so hard against acetaminophen, saying that the evidence they cited was, quote, weak, inconsistent, and to a large extent methodologically inadequate, unquote.
So they're saying the studies are crap.
Well, basically, yeah. That's the sciencey way of saying, what? This? This is not enough. And so a lot of scientists were really skeptical of this and didn't buy this story. Scientists like Brian. Does taking Tylenol actually increase, like when you're pregnant, increase the chance that your kid will have autism?
The answer right now points towards no.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So That's the short of it.
Wow.
Up next, the long of it. We'll hear the other side of the story and tell you whether or not you can have your damn Tylenol after the break.
Support for the show comes from Upway. So, I didn't know how to ride a bike until I was almost in my 30s. Somehow I missed learning when I was 5, and by the time I was 10, I already felt like I was too old. I finally learned a few years ago when I forced myself to bike to work. It totally transformed my life. I got around quicker, I got more exercise. It was just more fun to go places. But biking can be a tough thing to get into if you aren't in the habit. And that is where Upway comes in. Upway makes e-bikes, so you can still get the benefits of biking without the dread of staring up at a huge hill between you and your office. Upway makes it easy. They offer top brands like Specialized, Cannondale, and Aventon at up to 60% off retail. Every e-bike is thoroughly inspected by a professional mechanic and comes with a 1-year warranty, so you can ride with peace of mind. You can search by brand or style. You can book a call with a real human for help. And you can even stop by their showrooms in New York or LA. You can go to upway.co and use code unexplainable to get $150 off your first e-bike purchase of $1,000 or more. That's upway.co, code unexplainable. Go ahead. You won't regret it.
Did you lock the front door?
Check.
Close the garage door?
Yep.
Installed window sensors, smoke sensors, and HD cameras with night vision?
No.
And you set up credit card transaction alerts, a secure VPN for a private connection, and continuous monitoring for our personal info on the dark web?
I'm looking into it.
Stress less about security. Choose security solutions from TELUS for peace of mind at home and online. Visit TELUS.com/total security to learn more. Conditions apply.
I've had durian in Asia. It's a fruit with a smell so strong and offensive, airlines prohibit bringing it on the plane.
Durian is legendary. In some parts of the world, it's considered the king. Durian is in season. People pay a fortune for the best ripe fruit.
But it's also got such an intense aroma that you can't bring it on public transport in those same parts of the world. Julia Child described it as, quote, dead babies mixed with strawberries and camembert.
This episode of Gastropod, why is durian so beloved and also so hated? Where does that pungent smell come from? And can and should scientists get rid of it?
Find Gastropod wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe.
Welcome back. This is Meryl. So far, we've gone through a lot of the evidence against acetaminophen, the ingredient in medicines like Tylenol. Lots of studies seem to find that taking it while you're pregnant does increase the chance that your kid will be autistic or have ADHD. Are you ready for the rest of the science, Rose Rimler?
Yes.
Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
So here's where Brian Lee, our epidemiologist hero, comes in gallantly with a shiny new approach to looking at this question. His paper came out just last year.
We had a study funded by NIH before everything went to hell. And we were like, hey, we could actually look at this.
And so Brian teams up with some Swedish researchers because he's actually really into IKEA.
I don't think that's why.
Yeah, you got me.
I think it's because the Scandinavians keep really good records, public health records.
Yeah, it's because they have an amazing database.
Sweden having its lovely universal healthcare system means that you can track everyone. They don't just disappear in the system. They're tracked. Everyone has access to this, right?
So yeah, they got data from a ton of kids, almost 2.5 million of them. Basically every kid who was born there over a 24-year period. And they also had data from the moms, details about their medical care, like the medicines that they took during pregnancy. And so now Brian's team looked to see, were the kids exposed to acetaminophen in utero more likely to be autistic? And right off the bat, they found that yes, they were. So they found that the kids who were exposed to acetaminophen, 20 to 30% chance of being autistic.
Not what I was expecting. You were about to tell me.
Right. But actually Brian's team was sort of relieved when they found this.
This shows that we're not in crazy land, for example, that somehow our data are not flawed, we're not flawed. Everything is working as anticipated.
And that's because the effects that Brian was seeing in his data was in the same ballpark as what other groups had found. But here's where Brian and his team took a different path. They wanted to see if other factors might be muddling up the data here, making it look like it's the acetaminophen to blame when really it's something else entirely.
Yeah, okay, so Brian is trying to think of, are there other factors that might come into play here? And trying to like do some science to sort of suss those out, basically?
Yeah, and so to try to do that sussing out, he starts checking like, okay, what if some of the other factors that we know are linked to autism could be contributing to that effect that he saw, that 20 to 30% increased chance? Because like we talked about in our earlier episode on autism, we know that the age of the mom can affect the chance of whether her